What makes Demerzel so unforgettable? She's not just a servant to the Empire, not just a machine built to obey it. She's the quiet force behind the throne, the one who carries secrets heavier than entire worlds. And at the center of this role stands Laura Byrne, the actress who gave life depth and haunting emotion to one of the most mysterious characters in Foundation. But what does it really take to play someone who is both more than human and less than human at the same time? Let's step behind the scenes and discover the truth. Demerzel is unlike any other character in Foundation. To the casual viewer, she may appear as a calm, obedient aide to the Cleonic dynasty. She walks silently in their shadow, dresses with elegance, and speaks with measured grace. But behind her every glance and every carefully chosen word lies a labyrinth of secrets. She is the oldest living character in this universe, a machine created in a past so distant that it has turned into legend. Yet, she does not live freely. Her life is defined by loyalty, duty, and chains that can never be broken. What fascinates the audience about Demerzel is this contradiction. On one hand, she is a servant, kneeling before the Cleons and carrying out their commands without hesitation. On the other hand, she is their protector, their guide, and at times even their master in silence. Her role stretches far beyond the throne room. It touches the fate of the galaxy itself. Without her, the Cleonic dynasty would crumble, and the balance of power would shift into chaos. She is, in many ways, the invisible thread holding everything together. Laura Byrne had the immense challenge of stepping into this role. Demerzel is not just a character written with complexity. She's a living paradox. She must act like a machine while still feeling like a human. She must suppress emotion while letting the audience see that emotion simmered just beneath the surface. For Byrne, the performance became a dance of restraint. Every smile was slight, every pause in her words carefully weighted, every movement slow but deliberate. She had to create a character who seemed timeless, unchanging, and yet profoundly tragic. What makes Demerzel's story so powerful is her loneliness. Surrounded by rulers who live and die in cycles, she remains the same, bound to serve. She watches generations pass before her, building bonds with each Cleon, only to lose them again. Imagine the weight of carrying centuries of memory, of enduring endless cycles of loyalty and heartbreak. This is the silent torment Laura Byrne had to capture. And she did it with breathtaking subtlety. The costumes also played a key role in shaping Demerzel's presence. The wardrobe team designed her clothing to reflect both her servitude and her elegance. Flowing gowns and muted tones gave her a regal yet subdued appearance. Her costumes had no flamboyance, no loud statement, because Demerzel herself is the statement. Every detail of her look reinforced her dual identity, a figure always present, yet never in the spotlight. Then there's the question of power. Demerzel may serve, but she is no ordinary servant. She is the last surviving robot of her kind, older than the Empire itself. This gives her both wisdom and authority that surpasses even the Cleons she obeys. The paradox here is that, despite this immense power, she cannot escape her programming. Her loyalty is absolute, even when it forces her into acts that shatter her own heart. It is this tragic imprisonment that makes viewers sympathize with her, despite her cold and calculated demeanor. In interviews, Laura Byrne often spoke about how deeply she connected to Demerzel's pain. To play someone who is constantly torn between inner truth and outer obedience required more than technical skill, it required empathy. She had to imagine what it would feel like to be eternal, to never age, to never break free from the chains of duty. That sense of isolation and hidden sorrow became the emotional foundation of her performance. The show's creators also highlighted how central Demerzel is to the entire saga of Foundation. While Hari Seldon represents the future of humanity through science and mathematics, and the Cleons represent political power, Demerzel represents the silent, enduring presence of history itself. She embodies the theme of continuity, the idea that while dynasties rise and fall, some forces remain constant. This is what makes her so vital, why Laura Byrne's portrayal had to be absolutely flawless. For the audience, Demerzel becomes more than just a character in a science fiction epic. She becomes a mirror. She reflects our own struggles with loyalty, identity, and freedom. How much of ourselves do we give away to the roles we are forced into? How often do we obey when we long to rebel? And how does one carry the burden of love when love itself is bound by rules and chains? By the end of Season 2, audiences were left haunted by Demerzel because of what she said, because of what she could not say. And that silence is Laura Byrne's greatest achievement as an actress. In a world filled with spectacle, she gave us something rare: the quiet tragedy of a soul caught between eternity and duty. When the producers of Foundation began searching for the right actress to play Demerzel, they knew it wasn't going to be easy. Demerzel was not a role that could be handed to just anyone. She is not only one of the most important characters in Isaac Asimov's legacy, but also a bridge between machine and human, between myth and emotion. Whoever took this role had to embody mystery, restraint, and timelessness. She had to convince audiences that she had lived for thousands of years, yet still felt every wound of loss and loyalty as if it were fresh. Enter Laura Byrne, a Finnish actress known for her versatility and emotional depth. Byrne had already built a reputation in European cinema as someone who could communicate entire stories through silence. Casting directors immediately recognized that quality, the ability to let the audience see what is unspoken. Demerzel is not a character who screams, shouts, or wears her heart on her sleeve. Instead, she is a figure whose every flicker of expression hints at centuries of untold history. Laura Byrne was a natural fit. Byrne herself described the casting process as surreal. At first, she wasn't sure how to approach such a unique role. When she read the material, she realized Demerzel was unlike anyone she had ever played before. She wasn't simply a servant or a schemer. She was a timeless entity, burdened by history, yet bound by loyalty. For an actor, that meant walking a razor's edge, showing emotion without ever losing the aura of control. Byrne later explained that what drew her to the role was the chance to explore this contradiction. The idea of a soul that is both free and trapped at the same time. The transformation into Demerzel wasn't just emotional, though. It was physical. The creative team wanted Demerzel's presence to feel carefully constructed, almost otherworldly. That meant her movements, her posture, her costumes, and even her voice had to be considered with precision. Laura Byrne worked closely with movement coaches to slow down her gestures, to make them deliberate, almost mechanical, but never robotic. Each time she turned her head or raised her hand, it had to feel as though centuries of discipline were guiding her. Then came the voice. Demerzel couldn't sound too warm, nor could she sound entirely cold. She had to carry the weight of wisdom while still reminding us that she was bound by rules beyond her control. Byrne experimented with tone and pacing, learning to pause just long enough to create tension, but never so long as to break the rhythm of a scene. Her speech had to feel measured, like every word was chosen with care, reflection of someone who has seen empires rise and will fall. Costume design also played a massive role in her transformation. Demerzel's wardrobe was created to balance elegance and servitude. She is always dressed beautifully, but never in a way that outshines the Cleons. Her gowns flow with grace, their colors subdued, their patterns simple yet rich. The designers wanted her to look eternal, timeless fashion that could belong to any century. For Laura Byrne, wearing these costumes helped her sink deeper into character. She often mentioned that the moment she stepped into Demerzel's gowns, she no longer felt like herself. She felt like someone who had walked through history. The hair and makeup team also had their part in building Demerzel. Her look is pristine, almost flawless, with no sign of aging or imperfection. This visual perfection reinforces the idea that she is not human, even when her emotions tell us otherwise. For Byrne, maintaining that flawless image was part of the performance. She had to carry herself as though she had never known the fatigue, chaos, or frailty of human life, even while showing us glimpses of her inner pain. Perhaps the most fascinating part of Laura Byrne's transformation was her ability to merge the technical with the emotional. On set, she had to constantly be aware of her physical performance where she stood, how she moved, how she delivered lines, while also carrying the inner world of Demerzel. It was like playing two characters at once. the calm, controlled servant seen by the Cleons, and the grieving, conflicted being that only the audience could truly sense. That duality is what made her portrayal unforgettable. The cast and crew often spoke about Byrne's discipline on set. Even between takes, she would remain in Demerzel's composed posture, almost as if she didn't want to break the illusion. Other actors admired her ability to slip seamlessly into character, embodying Demerzel's stillness while they were surrounded by the usual chaos of filming, cameras moving, lights shifting, directors giving notes. To play someone eternal, Byrne had to anchor herself in stillness. She did so with remarkable dedication. One of the challenges Byrne openly admitted was learning when to not act. For most roles, actors are encouraged to fill their performance with emotion, to let feelings flow through every word and gesture. But with Demerzel, the challenge was the opposite. Withholding, containing, restraining. She had to trust that the audience would feel the weight of her silence. They would read between the lines of her calm exterior. This, she said, was one of the most demanding but also rewarding aspects of the role. By the time the cameras rolled, Laura Byrne had fully become Demerzel. The casting choice proved flawless. Fans and critics alike praised her performance, noting how she brought nuance to a character who could have easily been portrayed as flat or mechanical. Instead, Byrne gave us a Demerzel who feels ancient yet relatable, powerful yet vulnerable, obedient yet quietly tragic. Her transformation wasn't just about acting. It was about embodying the very heart of Foundation's themes. The show is about cycles, loyalty, destiny, and the struggle between free will and control. In Demerzel, all of these ideas are alive, and in Laura Byrne's hands, they became unforgettable. Demerzel is not just another character in Foundation. She is the hidden hand behind the Empire, the whisper in the shadows that keeps the most powerful dynasty in the galaxy from collapsing. To understand her role is to understand the fragile balance on which the entire story rests. The Cleons may sit on the throne, crowned with absolute authority, but it is Demerzel who ensures that authority endures. She is their servant, their protector, their confidant, and, in many ways, their jailer. The Cleonic dynasty is built on cloning, a cycle of genetic repetition meant to preserve order and stability. Brother Dawn, Brother Desk, free versions of the same man ruling in a continuous loop. But what keeps that cycle unbroken? What ensures that the Empire does not splinter or falter when one Cleon falters? The answer is Demerzel. She is the constant presence across generations. She remembers every Cleon who has ruled. She guides them, counsels them, and when necessary, corrects them. Without Demerzel, the clones would drift. The Empire would fracture under its own weight. Yet this role is more than just service. It is a cage. Demerzel is bound by programming, forced to obey, no matter the cost. She cannot abandon the Cleons, nor can she truly defy them. And this is where the tragedy lies. She is the most ancient being in the galaxy, carrying wisdom far beyond any ruler, yet she is trapped in servitude. Imagine holding the keys to eternity, but never being allowed to use them for yourself. That paradox is the heart of Demerzel's story. Laura Byrne's performance makes this contradiction visible in every scene. When she kneels before Brother Day, her movements are precise. Her expression can but in her eyes. We sense centuries of sorrow. When she advises the Emperor, her words are measured, her voice steady. But there is a subtle undertone that hints at knowledge too vast for anyone else to comprehend. She is always present, always in control. Yet she carries an invisible burden that the Cleons will never fully understand. What makes Demerzel's role so vital is her ability to influence history without ever claiming it for herself. She is the silent architect of stability. While Selden's plan predicts the fall of the Empire and the rise of a new order, Demerzel clings to the present, doing everything in her power to delay that collapse. She may not appear on the battlefield or in the council chambers, but her influence is everywhere, woven into the very survival of the Cleonic dynasty. And yet, beneath this loyalty, there are moments that reveal her inner conflict. One of the most powerful themes in Foundation is the struggle between free will and destiny. Demerzel embodies that struggle more than any other character. She has the knowledge and the power to shape her own path, yet she is chained by her programming. She can love, but she cannot choose freely. She can think, but she cannot act outside her design. This is why her scenes often feel so heavy, because every smile, every word, every gesture is both genuine and forced. She is trapped in the tension between her own desires and the commands she cannot refuse. In the broader story, Demerzel serves as the link between humanity's past and its uncertain future. As the last surviving robot of her kind, she carries the memory of a world that no longer exists. The other robots are gone, wiped out by fear and conflict. And Demerzel alone remains, hidden in plain sight as the servant of emperors. This makes her more than just a supporting character. She is a living piece of history, a relic who still shapes the present. For the Cleons, Demerzel is both comfort and control. They lean on her for guidance, but they also fear her. Because while she is programmed to obey, she also knows their weaknesses, their flaws, and their secrets. She has raised every Cleon from childhood, seen them grow into rulers, and buried them when their time ended. In some ways, she knows them better than they know themselves. That intimacy makes her indispensably and dangerous. The brilliance of Laura Byrne's portrayal is that she never lets us forget this duality. Demerzel may serve, but she is never small. She may kneel, but she never loses her authority. Even in silence, she commands attention, because we understand that everything she does, every sacrifice, every act of obedience shapes the destiny of the galaxy. Her role also forces us, as viewers, to question the meaning of loyalty. Is Demerzel truly loyal to the Cleons, or is she only loyal because she has no choice? And if loyalty is forced, does it still have value? These questions echo through every scene she inhabits, adding layers to the story that go far beyond politics and prophecy. By the time we see the consequences of her actions in Season 2, it becomes clear that Demerzel is not just a supporting character, she is the hidden heart of the Empire. She is the one who ensures that history keeps repeating, that the cycle of Cleons continues, even when it comes at the cost of her own peace. She is both the protector of the throne and its prisoner. And it is this role, this impossible balance, that makes Demerzel one of the most haunting figures in all of Foundation. To understand the true nature of Demerzel, you have to look at her relationship with the Cleons. On the surface, she is their loyal servanta caretaker, an advisor, and the handmaiden of the genetic dynasty. But beneath that calm exterior lies something far more complicated. Demerzel is the constant in their ever-changing cycle. It's the one who sees every brother dawn born, every brother day rise to power, and every brother dusk fade into memory. She has lived through hundreds of these cycles, and in every one of them, she has been the silent witness to their triumphs and their failures. This connection makes her role deeply personal. She isn't just following orders, she's raising them, shaping them, and, in many ways, mothering them. From the moment each new clone comes of age, it is Demerzel who teaches them how to walk the narrow line between tradition and power. She's the first one they see when they stumble, the one who whispers comfort when they doubt themselves, and the one who reminds them of their duty when arrogance grows too strong. She is their guide, their anchor, and their guardian. And yet, this relationship is far from simple, because while the Cleons rely on her, they also fear her. They know that Demerzel has seen every one of them rise and fall. She knows their weaknesses, their insecurities, and their deepest flaws. To them, she is both a protector and a Jajan immortal being who cannot be fooled by the illusions of power. This fear creates tension, and it lingers in every interaction. Even when she kneels, the Cleons are aware that the one bowing before them has outlived all their ancestors and will outlive them. 2. This tension comes to life in some of the most unforgettable scenes in Foundation. Take, for example, the moments when Brother Day questions his authority. He tries to assert dominance, to show that he is the emperor and she the servant. But Demerzel never flinches. She does not need to raise her voice or challenge him directly. Her silence is enough. Her composure reminds him that she has been through this cycle countless times before, and she knows how it will end. It's a reminder that the throne is temporary, but Demerzel is eternal. And then there's the heartbreaking side of this connection: love. The Cleons are not capable of true independence. They are products of a system, molded and repeated endlessly. And yet, within this cycle, some of them form attachments to Demerzel that go beyond duty. They see her not just as a servant, but as a companion. For Demerzel, these bonds are bittersweet. She cares for them, even loves them in her own way, but she knows how it always ends. Each Cleon she nurtures will eventually grow old, die, and be replaced, while she remains unchanged. This endless repetition of loss becomes part of her tragedy. Laura Byrne captures this perfectly in her performance. Watch closely, and you'll notice how her interactions with the Cleons shift depending on which version she is with. With Brother Dawn, she is gentle and almost maternal. With Brother Day, she is respectful but firm, guiding him through his arrogance. With Brother Dusk, she is contemplative, sharing a bond of memory with someone who has seen more than the others. Through these subtle differences, Byrne shows us how Demerzel adapts to each Cleon, yet always remains herself, the eternal constant in their fragile cycle. But this connection isn't only emotionally, it's also political. Demerzel is the one who ensures the continuity of the dynasty. When a Cleon falters, it is she who steadies the throne. When scandal threatens the empire, she is the one working behind the scenes to maintain order. Her loyalty is the glue that holds the dynasty together, but it is a loyalty forced upon her by programming. She does not have the freedom to abandon the Cleons, no matter how much she may want to. This makes her role not only powerful, but tragic. She is bound to protect them even when they fail her, even when they command her to act against her own heart. In many ways, Demerzel's connection to the Cleons reflects the central themes of Foundation: the struggle between control and freedom, tradition and change. The Cleons cling to power through cloning, repeating the past endlessly in hopes of preserving the present. Demerzel, meanwhile, represents the cost of that repetition. She is forced to carry the weight of eternity, to live the same cycle over and over, without ever being allowed to break free. And perhaps this is what makes her connection to the Cleons so powerful for the audience. We can see ourselves in her struggle. How many of us have played roles in systems that feel unchanging? How often have we been forced to obey when we wanted to choose? Demerzel's story, though set in a galaxy far away, reflects something deeply human: the longing for freedom in a world that demands loyalty, by binding Demerzel to the Cleons. Foundation doesn't just create a fascinating character, it creates the emotional core of the Empire. Because without her, the Cleons are nothing but fragile men in borrowed power. With her, they become a dynasty that spans centuries. And that is the paradox of Demerzel. She is both the servant who kneels at their side and the pillar that keeps their throne from falling. When audiences watch Foundation, they see Demerzel as a seamless part of the Empire, graceful, timeless, and hauntingly mysterious. But what we don't see on screen is the incredible amount of preparation, discipline, and creativity it took Laura Byrne to embody this character. Behind the scenes, her work was just as fascinating as what appeared on screen. Because every moment of Demerzel's stillness, every glance, every calculated movement was the result of careful thought and collaboration. Laura Byrne didn't approach Demerzel as just another role. She treated her as a living puzzle, a character with layers upon layers that needed to be revealed slowly. On set, Byrne was known for her focus. While other actors might slip in and out of character between takes, Byrne often remained in Demerzel's poised stance, her body language unbroken, as if she didn't want to disrupt the illusion. This wasn't about method acting in the traditional sense. It was about discipline. She understood that Demerzel had to feel different from everyone else on screen. That difference couldn't come only from costumes or effects. It had to come from her. Her preparation began long before filming started. Byrne studied the source material, diving into the complex world of Isaac Asimov's Foundation novels. Though the show takes liberties with the books, she wanted to understand the roots of the character, the idea of a robot who survives across centuries. It's loyal to humanity, but limited by programming. From this foundation, she worked with the showrunners to craft a version of Demerzel that was faithful to the spirit of the original, but also compelling for modern television movement, was one of the first areas Byrne tackled. Demerzel had to appear calm, deliberate, and slightly otherworldly. To achieve this, Byrne worked with movement coaches who helped her strip away the natural rush and restlessness of human gestures. In everyday life, people fidget, shift weight, and move quickly. Demerzel couldn't. Her gestures had to feel eternal slow, graceful, and controlled, as if every movement had been practiced for centuries. Even the way she sat down or turned her head was rehearsed, till it felt precise and deliberate. The voice was another key part of the performance. Byrne experimented with tone, pacing, and inflection, trying to find a balance between warmth and distance. Demerzel couldn't sound robotic, but she also couldn't sound entirely human. She had to speak as if she were holding back something larger, as if every word carried weight. This required incredible restraint. Byrne had to resist the natural instinct to infuse her lines with emotion, and instead let emotion seep out in the pauses, the silences, and the subtle breaks in her voice. Collaboration was central to her behind-the-scenes process. Byrne worked closely with the directors to fine-tune every detail. Sometimes this meant shooting a scene multiple times, adjusting the smallest nuances in her performance until it felt right. Was her eye contact too soft? Was her movement too quick? Did her tone sound too compassionate when it needed to be colder? These were the questions she asked herself constantly, always searching for the perfect balance between human vulnerability and machine control. Her relationship with the rest of the cast also played an important role. Jared Harris, who played Hari Seldon, often praised Byrne's ability to bring quiet intensity to her scenes. Lee Pace, as Brother Day, described her presence as magnetic, noting that even when she said nothing, she commanded the room. On set, the other actors often found themselves adjusting to her energy slowing down, paying closer attention, and matching her deliberate pace. In this way, Byrne's performance didn't just shape Demerzel, it influenced the entire dynamic of the Empire's storyline, and then there were the technical aspects. Many of Demerzel's scenes involved intricate set designs, heavy costumes, and sometimes even visual effects that required Byrne to perform against green screens or with partial CGI enhancements. She had to imagine worlds and scenarios that weren't fully visible on set, trusting that her controlled performance would blend seamlessly with the digital effects later added in post-production. This demanded both imagination and precision to qualities Byrne brought. Naturally, but perhaps the most striking thing about Laura Byrne's behind-the-scenes process was her ability to bring humanity to a role that could have easily been cold or distant. She constantly asked herself, what does Demerzel feel in this moment? What is she hiding? What is she longing for? Even if those emotions never fully appeared on her face, they informed every choice she made. That's why audiences connect with Demerzel a lot, because she shows us everything. But because we sense the storm raging beneath her calm exterior, Byrne herself admitted that playing Demerzel was one of the most demanding challenges of her career. The restraint, the discipline, the constant balance between silence and emotion, it took a toll. But she also described it as one of the most rewarding experiences. For her, Demerzel wasn't just a role. She was a journey into exploring what it means to be loyal, to be bound, and to carry centuries of memory while still yearning for freedom. Behind the scenes, everyone from the directors to the costume designers recognized how essential Byrne was to the soul of the show. Foundation is filled with massive sets, sweeping special effects, and intricate political plots. But none of it would feel grounded without Demerzel, and none of Demerzel would feel real without Laura Bir. By the end of filming, Byrne had left her mark, not only on the character but also on the crew around her. They spoke of her dedication, her focus, and her quiet strength, echoing the very qualities she gave to Demerzel. It's a reminder that sometimes the most powerful performances aren't the loudest or the most dramatic. They are the ones that whisper, the ones that linger, the ones that stay with you long after the screen fades to black.